Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of what is now the Shortsighted podcast with Isak today, who is talking about having reversed his minus 0.75 very low myopia, which is an interesting story since the last diopter tends to be a challenge for people. And I think it's important to get reassurance firsthand from somebody who's done it. So here's Isak.
Okay, so my name is Isak. I'm from Slovenia, and I started with my eyesight improvement journey in 2018. I think it was my senior year, actually my junior year of high school, and I was at minus 0.75 diopters, which is pretty low myopia, but I still wasn't happy with where I was at because, I remember an instance where I was looking um, at my grandma, and I could see like blur 1 meter from my face, and I just didn't want that. So I wanted to fix something, and then I stumbled upon Jake's Endmyopia website, and I
How
just started
did
reading
you how
through.
did you stumble on it? I'm most curious about that.
Oh yeah, so I was just like doing like research on Google. I was just searching ways to improve your eyesight or to get rid of glasses. And
And first impressions after you found it,
well, I was, yeah, I was like, if that works, that's great, you know?
but it
And
does
as I,
seem
st-
like it is kind of far-fetched though, right? Like because I'm asking this because I've just been working on redoing the website a little bit and trying to cut off some of the sarcasm and obscure jokes, but then it's still far-fetched. And I'm curious what your take on this is when you first run into this and there's the internet and there's all this crazy unicorn farming, like what got you into it enough to where you said, I'm going to try this?
yeah, I mean, I was like, when I saw it, and I was for first pretty skeptical, honestly, but then I like signed up for your like email list, and I got the 7-day emails. And as I saw that you like focus into biology and you have like, you basically on science, right? That's where I kind of got like the credibility, and seeing your story, like how you improved. That kind of it's kind of like lead me to think that I'm in the right place, you know.
2018, and now you're not wearing any glasses at all, right?
No, I'm basically 2020 most of the time. Sometimes it takes me a little longer to focus, but I'm a student, so I have classes, and I don't wear my glasses in classes. I can like see the board from like pretty far away, and I've never used glasses actually like in class. So
I'm curious because what I always tell people is the last diopter is the hardest one, right? Like once you're, it's a lot easier to improve from like where I was a -5, because especially because you're weighing differentials, especially because there's a big difference between changes in diopters. What was your experience like? How did you go from the little less than one diopter to 2020?
right, so at first, like the first 4 months, first half a year, I didn't see any progress. I was measuring my eyesight daily, so I had like a chart, and I would measure how far I see, and I would notice like patterns, like when I had more close-up time, this would be like longer, and when I felt like my eyes are tired, like obviously my eyesight would be the worst. Um, and what I really needed to do was I needed to address my habits, because I saw that like I'm having like a bunch of close-up time, which is unnecessary. So for example, like when I was commuting to school every day, I was on my phone, right? And then like as I changed that to like looking outside the window, looking at the trees, like great way to like kind of teach your eyes to active focus. Or talking to my friends was even better than being like on my phone. It's like things like that, or like not taking breaks when I study for like 3 hours at a time, right? This is also one of those. And as I started addressing like those things, um, this is where like change started to come slowly. And you know, when you start seeing the improvement, it's just like motivating. You know, it's just,
Did you wear glasses in the beginning of that? Like what did you start out with as far as
right.
general?
So my story with glasses is like, so I didn't go to the optometrist. So when I was trying to get my driver's license, they said that I didn't pass the DMV test, and they sent me to the optometrist. But the thing is, I was like waiting and waiting like for a year before I went there because I just like didn't want to get glasses, you know. But I eventually went there, and they measured 0.075. Sorry, just 0.75. I got the glasses, and I just mostly got the glasses just to see like how 2020 vision looks like, because it was like probably a year for me without like seeing 2020 and without having glasses. And then as I got the glasses, I would say I just wore them like some like daily occasions where I wanted to see like how the 2020 feels like, but I didn't wear them like in school or like daily basis.
So did your vision noticeably get worse at some point to where you arrived at that minus 7.5, or was it always the case and you just weren't aware of it?
I think I wasn't aware of when my vision just like got worse. It just happened over time, I think. Like I think it's due to because like I was really like not even looking at the distance that much, and then I don't know, just one day I just like saw, okay, my vision is not good, and then they confirmed. My optometrist told me, yeah, you have like myopia. So I can't really recall like when exactly it got worse, if that
And
makes sense.
yeah, that makes sense. And when you started wearing the minus 7.5, 0.75 glasses,
Yeah.
um, yeah, difference. Was that, how was that experience? Like, did you notice any difference between wearing them and not wearing them, or wearing them and then taking them off? How much were you wearing them? I'm genuinely curious because that's really a starting point where a lot of people start out with myopia and the lens wear. And it's interesting if you're only wearing it part-time. Like, do you notice your eyesight being worse when you take them off, or do you appreciate having that clear distance vision? How was that experience?
It really was kind of like eye-opening, like because I haven't seen like a clear image at that point when I got the glasses for a while. So I could see colors much more vividly. I could see like every branch of the tree, you know, just like in like vivid detail. I could read like signs on the road. Honestly, it was just like kind of addicting. Like I just wanted to keep them on. But I knew that like if I get used to glasses, then I'm gonna stay here or even increase my myopia.
And what gave you that idea? Like, what made you? Because as you're saying that, I remember like I would go to the optometrist. I was a kid, like early teens, and I was honestly kind of excited about new glasses because that first moment of like amazing clarity
Mhm.
is pretty cool, and like you said, is somewhat addictive. Like, what made you go the opposite route? Like, you put these things on, and then you go, "Wow, that's amazing." What makes you go, "I want to go in the opposite direction"?
Right. Well, I think part of it is like just the stigma I was used to around glasses. Like people just like not seeing glasses as something nice here in our culture, I think. Just like, yeah, you're like a nerd or something, right? Uh, and my brother like telling me, you're gonna wear glasses. And I think that kind of like affected me in a certain way. And also being an athlete, a rower, it's kind of like rowing with glasses is kind of like
Yeah. No, it's shit. I used to row.
inconvenient. Like,
I used to
yeah,
be
you
on the
did.
rowing team also. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like glasses
Oh,
are no good. Yeah.
like college.
No, it was separate from school. I just did it as a
Uh,
hobby. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The glasses are no go here. I mean, if you're wearing contacts, yeah, but like, I didn't want that, you know. So I think this was like my motivation to really get back, and because I knew at that point I was like reading the articles on the website, and I saw some stories of people how they got back. So I believe that I can generally do it.
So you weren't, that wasn't disheartening. You said the first 6 months you weren't really seeing progress. Like what kept you going at that point?
Hmm. Um, I just, like, I think it was just that the thought that it's gonna get better, and my measurements that I did, my like my distance, like the blur measurements, they got like I had ups and downs, so I knew that like something is changing, right? And and I just kept going. I don't know. It's just like I just didn't want to give up. I know for some people like it's tough if they don't see progress, but I was just like I saw that like some people on the blog mentioned there's a learning curve and you got to be patient, and so I was, and then just one day I was just looking outside my window, looking at a sign, and it was blurry at first, and then I just like told, and like inside me I just told, okay, like my silly muscles just relax. I just told it, I just relax, and then just all of a sudden the sign just cleared, and this was just like the most crazy thing because like for the first time I was able to like see a clear image without even like without glasses, you know. And this was a great discovery, and from that point on, I was just kind of motivated to keep going because I would I would like practice that daily. Then I would just like look at distant objects and wait for a little bit, and my eyes would just relax, and it would just the image would just clear up, you know.
Yeah, that's a really key experience. And it bothers me that this concept of active focus, it's like the one intangible thing. Like it's the one thing in this whole entire process that you can't just explain exactly with words that somebody can replicate. But at the same time, that is the experience, right? Like once you see that sign clear up one time, like you have direct proof to yourself that this can happen. And then you replicate it and again, and that becomes a habit and that improves your eyesight, right? But like getting
Mm-hmm.
to that point really is the key thing. Like if you've never seen anything clear up, it's a totally, you have a different mindset than when you have seen that, I think, right?
Right. Yeah, I do agree. It's hard to like explain to people like how do you just how do you just get from like sync blur to sync clear image like without the glasses? It's just it just seems like irrational. But I mean, once you experience it, you know, it's one of those things. Once you experience it, you know, you know it's possible.
Uh, it's definitely a bit of a red flag, especially because we are on the internet and we're surrounded by the unicorn farming, and this sounds far-fetched already, right? Like it sounds like we're talking about a conspiracy and they're lobbying and they're turning into a prescription and your eyes are fine and $100 billion industry. And it just, in my own head, when I say it, I'm like, this sounds just like internet conspiracies, right? And then you throw in
Mm-hmm.
the active focus where it's sort of an intangible experience, but then when you have it, it's like it's such a powerful thing. And all of that, I don't love it because I prefer just the simple science. And we're talking like when you're talking about measurement results, you're seeing an improvement in centimeter distance, you're seeing an improvement in eye chart. Those are all nice, tangible, factual things that you can replicate versus some of this that's so essential, right? Like active focus is so essential, but at the same time, it's the thing you have to discover on your own.
Right. I mean, I think the way like you're doing those podcasts, I think this can like help people see this active focus from like different points of views, you know? And I think this helps. It helped me for sure, like seeing how people describe like getting that clear flash or that active focus discovery. It genuinely was like valuable to see, you know, different
How long
experiences.
how long did it take you to get there?
So I think this was like a little less than a year from when I started with my like when I started like when I actually discovered your website, when I started like looking into it, um, trying different like doing the measurements, and so it was a pretty long time, but
That's longer than it should take. Yeah. What about close up? Do you wear anything for close up ever? Did you ever?
I no, I have a pair of plus lenses, but I don't know. I was just like I when I put them on, it just feels like there's a certain level of blur that I'm like not really able to like control. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. I just rather deal with close up so that I break it up and take breaks, or that I just look at my computer from like further away. You know. Um,
Yeah, and that's a good point. People ask me about plus lenses a lot, and I sometimes recommend some amount of plus lens use. But I like what you're saying because it underlines what I often say. It's kind of a last resort, and it's something that if you don't need it, you might as well not play with it. And I like the fact that you made it back to 2020, even though you're studying, you're in university, you probably have a ton of close up. But what I often say is you don't really need any artificial focal plane help in most cases from starting where you're at.
mhm. Well, now like for example, like I'm studying from home and I have to like look at the screens for like let's say like maybe 6 hours a day. So I think now it would be a good way to like start maybe using the plus lens if in case I see like that my eyesight is getting worse. But also the thought of like my eyesight getting worse right now is not as like terrifying as it was, because I know that if it gets worse, now I already got it. I've already like made it better once, so I can do it again. It just I know how to do it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like I definitely go through these phases. Like now this whole new wonderful virus thing where we're somewhat limited in what we can do. And I have more close up and I definitely get up sometimes and I notice some ciliary strain and I fall into this also a little bit where I'm like, yeah, I know how to fix it, no big deal. It's definitely better not to end up there. And you could try really low plus, like a half diopter. You
Mhm.
barely notice it, and just doing it like not when you're in motion, just when you're sitting in front of a screen and maybe for half an hour, right? Of the first half an hour, and just very casually and a very little bit of it. And since you already know how to measure and not just measure, but you already have this intuitive understanding of how your eyes are doing, you can kind of compare whether that's useful or not.
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, this should be my kind of savior from all that close up and like staying away from getting my eyesight worse again.
Yeah, super
That,
interesting.
yeah.
Rowing. So you do rowing there in Slovenia or in the US?
Yeah, so I did it here in Slovenia, and then I got recruited to an university in the US, and I row at Spen's heavyweight rowing team right now. So in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, and yeah, it's a great experience. Like because it's a bigger team, like 40 guys, and you just compete every day with each other, and it's just like once in a lifetime experience. That's how I word it usually, and it's only 4 years of time, and trying to make the most of it. It's.
And
it's
it gets
great.
you away from screens for a solid amount of time too. And
Exactly, yeah.
it's a
When you're
bunch of
rowing on
hours.
water,
Yeah.
you have to look around for other boats, make sure that you're like, make sure that your boat is safe, right, and that you're not hitting anything. When you're inside, which we are also like 3 times a week, it's it's not that you're like getting ciliary spasm, but it's just you're not getting like any active focusing. But I think it greatly balances out with school because yeah, you're outside. You're It's a perfect way to like practice, train your eyesight. Um, I do notice sometimes, however, like if I'm super tired, my eyesight gets blurry. But then it's usually just due to like maybe tiredness and extreme fatigue or dehydration, and usually just goes away, you know, on its own.
Yeah, natural. I mean, eyesight fluctuates. People forget
Mhm.
about that when they wear strong glasses because your eyesight is just always at this maximum level artificially. Like what you're experiencing is natural eyesight. You know, if you're tired, you didn't sleep well, you ate like crap, you partied too much, like your eyesight's not going to be amazing. And that's just like general awareness of your body otherwise, right? It's part of that whole thing. Like when you don't feel great and your eyesight isn't great, that's all part of the normal package. But when people put on strong glasses, that becomes excluded because now you have this band-aid thing that just keeps your eyes at this unnatural level.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So now you're locked up for a while, huh? Or we're all locked up for a while.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know when we're gonna get released. Certainly, I'm gonna finish my semester from home. I can't go to my club to practice now yet because I just returned home, so I need to be in self-isolation for 2 weeks. And so I'm working out at home. I'm like doing everything at home. I haven't seen any of my friends yet.
Wow.
So it is kind of like frustrating, being on your own, but at the same time, you get like time to do things you otherwise forget to do, like just work on yourself, like just do some self-reflection and just like read a good book or something. It's, I feel like self-isolation is not necessarily bad.
That's true. What would you say? And again, this is just kind of, I wonder about this a lot. To people who are in the spot where they're wearing glasses and maybe they listen to this, right? They look at the website, but the full level of motivation isn't there. I always try to convey how much better your life is without things stuck in front of your face. But I feel like maybe it needs to be coming from other people. Like maybe you have some insight or some motivation, the difference between being stuck behind glasses and being free of that nonsense. Like do you have any kind of insight that you think may help somebody who's on the fence about putting in the effort?
Yeah, that's a good question. Certainly for me, I was really motivated by the fact that I don't need to worry about like needing something to improve my eyesight. And I was just like the idea of like needing glasses all the time and knowing where you put them and like making sure you don't forget them. Um, it's just kind of like it takes freedom away from you. You know what I mean? Like when you wake up, you need to find your glasses first, and then it's yeah. This is like one thing, and then also another thing for me was like, yeah. So if I start working on it right now, it's gonna be like easier to get back because if I wait, my eyesight's gonna constantly get worse. And so like now is the time to start. If I didn't start in 2018, I think I would be at like -2 right now. And so yeah, so think about it like, is it worth waiting or like is it just should I just start and just like see the improvement and just get back on my eyesight and I'll be super grateful for that. Right. So yeah, so this is what I thought of when I was lacking motivation and trying to improve my eyesight still. So I think if if your audience finds that useful, I certainly am grateful to see anyone like starting to improve later eyesight right now. And
What about phones? What do you do about phones? Do you use phones much?
right, well, it's I knew that like this journey is gonna have some sacrifices. So I really like reduced my phone time significantly. Like if I would go like on social media, I would go on my laptop because it has a bigger screen. Um, I would basically use my phone just to like call people, text people sometimes. Um, but I would just like try to stay away from the phone screen because it's also smaller and it's I feel like an unnecessary strain for your eyes where you can go on your computer if you really need to. So I get it. It's super hard to kind of like reduce the time on your phone because like we're super reliant on them these days. Um,
Does that make you different? Like as you're looking around, like your peer group, are people mostly on their phone, or is there a trend towards getting away from some of that?
that is what I noticed for sure. Like especially being on a campus and like students are really like heavy like consumers of like social media and they're super like heavy phone users. And yeah, sometimes like I kind of feel like an outsider because like I'm the only one not using the phone and I'm just like being mindful in the moment, trying to talk to people. Um, I don't find it like forcing me to use my phone. I just simply observe like other people, and for those who like decide to, you know, turn the phone down, talk to me, that's great. If not, I always can like I always like if I use my phone, I would like put the headphones in and just listen to a podcast, and I feel like it's a good way to also like get information, but still have your eyesight like you can look anywhere.
I know,
Like
right? Like
right,
now we're doing podcasts. I didn't even know about podcasts until
right,
eventually I found one or two that I really enjoyed. And whenever I'm on a flight or on a bus, I would listen to podcasts. But eventually it took me a super long time to get to the point where I was like, I can replace some of my actual screen time in the evening. I can listen to an audiobook or podcast. That transition for me was pretty difficult. And then going from that to us actually doing it, because I'm kind of a hypocrite, right? Like most of our content is either in writing or YouTube videos. And it just took me all these years to get to this point where finally now these things are going to be available in podcast format. So handy that I think
right,
podcast is really great.
right.
Huh?
I generally was looking for a podcast when I was improving my eyesight because I didn't want to read the blog when I was like driving or something. I wanted basically to get the kind of information like straight in my like ears. And yeah, I think like there is kind of like a line of like you need to pass where you want to transition from just like seeing like the content whereas hearing it. But I think once you kind of transition, once you get used to podcasts, it's just yeah, like you realize that you were missing a lot when you were just like scrolling, right?
Right,
Like
yeah. It frees up a lot of space, right? Because visually you can still
yeah,
function, you can move around,
yeah.
but you have some entertainment or learning experience or something. It's cool. I like it. That's
Hmm.
awesome.
And
And I'm glad we connected because this whole,
right,
we already covered high myopia cases. We already covered post LASIK. We already covered a big range of improvement. But that last diopter, that's really one that gets people. And I'm super happy that you came on to share a bit of a firsthand experience. Because also, I think there's a big thing about people believing something to be possible. Like there's all these stories of Olympic records that were just never broken for so long until somebody did, and right after somebody did, a bunch of other people got to the same space. I really think there's something in our heads that says, okay, here's the line of what's possible, and then we don't move past that. right? So I think it's really important to have your voice or your face where people can go, okay, here is this person who started at less than one diopter, which is a really tricky place to get back from, and is now back to 20/20 eyesight, right?
Yeah, Jake, of course. And thanks for having me. And also, like, I think this should be like a wake-up call for some people who are right now in the place where I was like in 2018, where they're like not content with their eyesight, and they know that they can do something about it. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I was able to like share my information and my experience with like your audience. So maybe it will help. I hopefully will help your
Awesome.
viewers.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much
Yeah,
for being
thanks.
on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. It was great.
All right. So that was Isak. I hope that was instructive, helpful, beneficial, motivating, especially if you're already in very low myopia territory. A quick note, these are also available now in podcast format. I'm moving most of the videos also into podcast format. Links to that below. You can pretty much listen to this in your favorite podcast app. I'll be adding more of them soon. Fair bit of changes and additions that you hopefully will enjoy. Feel free to leave comments. I unfortunately still read comments. And see you in the next one.
Meow, 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 meow.